You ever been looked at like you didn't belong? Not because you said the wrong thing or wore the wrong clothes or parked your car the wrong way. Number just because you were there. Quiet, older, unbothered. And somehow that was the problem. My name's Walter Harlan. I'm 71 years old, a retired Marine, and I've lived through enough to know that silence often speaks louder than words. I moved into this cul-de-sac just 6 months ago, hoping to find a little peace in my retirement. What I found instead was something I thought I'd left behind a long time ago. Disrespect wrapped in a smile, condescension dressed in spandex. I didn't move here to make friends. I moved here to sit on a porch, drink black coffee from a chipped mug, and throw the ball for Duke, my old military K9 who's slower now, but still sharp as ever. I garden in the mornings, listen to war stories on the radio, and call it a good day when the tomatoes come in sweet. There's a white Mercedes that parks in front of my house sometimes. No, it's not mine. It belongs to my son. He's the mayor of this city, though you wouldn't know it by the way I dress. He visits when he can, parks in front, and walks up carrying a bag of groceries and that proud smile only a son gives his father. But not everyone sees that. There's a woman on this street, young, blonde, always dressed like she's on her way to a fitness ad. She runs past my porch every morning like she owns the pavement, tossing glances my way that land somewhere between annoyance and pity. The first time she saw the Mercedes, she sneered, asked if I was watching the house for someone, like I couldn't possibly be connected to a car like that, like I couldn't possibly matter. She had no idea who I was, or who my son was, but she was about to learn something far more important. Because respect isn't about who talks the loudest. Sometimes it's about who listens the longest. And old men on porches, we've been listening a long time. It didn't happen all at once. That's how these things usually go, don't they? Not with shouting or slammed doors or signs posted in bold red letters. No, the trouble started slow, like a leak you don't notice until the floor's warped. It began with a look, not a word, just a glance. One of those quick up and down scans that sizes you up, puts you in a box, and seals the lid tight before you ever get a chance to speak. I was out front trimming the edge of the lawn, nothing fancy, just keeping it neat. She jogged by, ponytail bouncing, phone in hand, and didn't say a word. But her eyes spoke plenty. They said, "You don't belong here." Next time she stopped. She paused at the edge of my driveway, hands on her hips, and squinted at the Mercedes. Her lip curled just slightly like she smelled something off. "Is that your car?" she asked, already sure of the answer. "No, ma'am. My son's." She blinked. "He lives here?" "He visits." That was enough to shut her up for the day, but the seed was planted. After that, the micro things started happening. You know the ones, small but sharp. Her trash appeared in my bin, twice. My mail was left open on the porch rail, like someone peeked and decided it wasn't interesting enough to steal. And her dog, some yappy little thing in a sweater, left a mess on my lawn, right by my rose bushes. She never picked it up. At first I let it go. I've faced far worse than passive-aggressive neighbors. I've seen men fall in sandstorms, patched up bullet wounds with my belt. I've been barked at by generals and praised by strangers in airports. This question mark, this was small potatoes. But disrespect is like rust. Ignore it, and it spreads. The last straw came on a Saturday. I was coming back from the grocery store, 3 bags in each hand, Duke trotting behind me when I saw it. Her car. Not the usual spot across the street, number right in my driveway. Front tires nudged up against the edge of the garden bed I just remulched that morning. My son's parking spot, my space, and she wasn't even around. Just gone. No note, no apology, no permission. I stood there, bags biting into my fingers, sweat clinging to my back, Duke growling low at my side. For a moment I thought, maybe it's a mistake. Maybe she didn't realize. But deep down, I knew better. She knew exactly what she was doing, and something in me, something I hadn't felt in years, shifted. The part that used to plan missions, that memorized maps, that could see 12 steps ahead while keeping a steady hand. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I'd seen this pattern before. I'd seen how folks test you, inch by inch, waiting to see if you'll push back. She had just crossed the first line. she wouldn't see the next one coming. You learn a lot in the military. How to fold a shirt tight enough to bounce a quarter, how to break down a rifle in the dark, how to read a man's intention by the way he clears his throat. But what stays with you most is how to wait. I didn't yell. I didn't knock on her door with a finger in the air. That's not how men like me were trained. No, I went inside, set the groceries down, poured a tall glass of cold water, and sat at the kitchen table. Duke curled at my feet, his ears still twitching from the tension outside. I pulled out an old notebook from the drawer. Leather-bound, soft at the corners. The kind they issued to us during long missions, when everything needed logging. Weather patterns, footpaths, radio codes. This time I opened it to a blank page and wrote just one word. Observe. And that's what I did. For the next several days I watched. Not creepily, not obsessively, just attentively. Like I used to, posted on the edge of a camp perimeter, listening for the one sound that didn't belong. Her routine was as loud as her leggings. She jogged every morning at 6:40, drove a silver Lexus, parked across her own driveway, unless she needed the extra room to load gym bags, or when friends stopped by and took her space, in which case, my driveway became fair game. 3 times in 1 week, she used my property like it was a loading dock. Once, she even left her car idling for 20 minutes while I was trying to rest. The engine hummed like an insect stuck behind glass. That night I wrote again in the notebook, entitled, unaware, escalating. Still, I said nothing. Then came the morning I found footprints through the side garden. Trampled mint, bent basil, a protein shake bottle tucked between the daisies. That wasn't just carelessness, that was trespassing. I thought about calling the HOA, but we both know how that song goes. Their version of looking into it usually meant a shrug and a pamphlet about neighborly communication. So I chose a different route. In the back of my garage, past the stacked ammo boxes, beside the cabinet where my old medals hang, I keep a set of tools I haven't touched in years. I used to rebuild motorcycles with my brother before his knees gave out. Tinkering kept my hands busy and my mind quiet. There, under a tarp, was my old pressure washing system. Heavy duty, industrial, built to peel paint off concrete. I'd customized it a while back, added dual spray heads and a backup battery for storms. Now I began to think differently about it. Over the next 2 evenings, I worked quietly, methodically, repositioned the hoses, rerouted the trigger line, installed a discrete motion sensor, one of those solar-powered ones I'd picked up after a raccoon broke into my shed last year. I calibrated the angle to the inch, just wide enough to catch the far edge of my driveway, just tall enough to hit the driver's side door of any car that dared nestle where it didn't belong. It wasn't revenge. It was a line in the sand. No signs, no warnings, just physics and plumbing. By the time I tested it, late one night, with Duke watching like a sergeant on inspection, the blast was sharp, cold, and unforgiving. Not enough to damage a car, of course, just enough to wake someone up. I stepped back, arms crossed, feeling something settle in my chest. Not pride, not spite, resolve. Because sometimes the best answer isn't shouting. Sometimes it's a well-placed silence that does something. The morning it happened felt just like any other. Sky soft and gray, birds squabbling in the oak tree. Duke had his usual slow stretch on the porch, nose twitching at the wind. Everything felt calm, too calm, the kind of quiet that makes old soldiers sit up a little straighter. I poured my coffee. No sugar, just black as ever. I leaned on the porch railing, mug warm in my hands, and waited. Not with nerves, but with a kind of stillness you earn over time. And right on cue, 6:43 a.m., she came into view. Pink joggers, tight ponytail, wireless earbuds tucked in place. Her Lexus crawled down the street like a shark sniffing for blood. She didn't even hesitate. Turned into my driveway like it had her name on it. Only this time, it didn't end the way she planned. The moment her tires crossed the invisible line, psht! 3 jets of icy water exploded from the edge of my yard. One hit the windshield dead center. The second blasted the driver's side mirror. And the third? Oh, that one caught her door just as she opened it. She screamed. A full-on yelp, arms flailing, her yoga mat slipping out like a wet fish. Her pastel jacket clung to her like tissue paper, hair soaked, mascara already starting to slide. I didn't move, just took a long sip of coffee. She turned toward me, dripping, stunned, fury flickering across her face like a busted light bulb. "What the hell is this?" I set my mug down and met her eyes calmly. "New irrigation system, automatic rinse, keeps the driveway clean." She blinked. "You did this on purpose." "It only activates when something crosses the motion sensor. Funny how that keeps happening in front of my house." She sputtered, water pooling around her sneakers. "That's assault. I'm calling someone." I nodded, slow as the sunrise. "Please do. My son would love to hear about it. He's the mayor after all." Silence. For a moment her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just the sound of dripping water and Duke's low, satisfied huff behind me, like he knew justice had just been served with a side of irony. She backed out, soaked and seething, spinning tires, kicking up wet gravel. Didn't even look back. And me? I marked the day in my notebook with 2 words: line held. I didn't post it online. Didn't boast or brag. That's not my way. But I will say this. She never parked in my driveway again. I thought that might be the end of it. Thought a cold splash of truth and a quiet line drawn clear as day might settle the matter. Folks like her, though, they don't learn fast. Not the first time. Not when life's handed them the world without ever asking for patience. For a few days there was peace. She jogged a little farther out of her way. Parked where she should have parked all along. No trash in my bin. No dog mess by my roses. The air itself felt easier, like the tension had loosened its grip. But pride doesn't go down easy. It showed up in the form of a letter. Thick paper, embossed with her name across the top like she was drafting a ceasefire from a corner office instead of the passenger seat of a Lexus. Folded sharp, tucked neat under a stone on my porch rail. Like a gift, if gifts could sneer. "Dear neighbor, I hope this letter finds you well. I wanted to kindly suggest that, in the spirit of community, you reconsider your recent measures. They seem unnecessarily hostile. After all, this is a neighborhood, not a battlefield. I'm sure we can come to an understanding like reasonable adults." Warmly, Chelsea Brighton. Reasonable adults. I read that line twice. Laughed once. See, there's a kind of insult that comes wrapped in soft words. I didn't write back. Didn't need to. Sometimes the loudest reply is no reply at all. But I logged the letter, flattened it between the pages of my leather-bound notebook, the same one I carried through dust storms and quiet deployments, where we wrote down things worth remembering. Names, coordinates, offenses. This question mark. This was worth remembering. And wouldn't you know, the quiet didn't last. Duke was the first to catch the shift. Dogs always do. It was near sundown, the sky painted soft like old denim, when he let out that warning bark. Not loud, but steady, purposeful. I stepped onto the porch. There she was, parked just shy of the line. Not in my driveway this time, but close enough to make a statement. Windows down, Lexus humming low like a mosquito you can't quite swat. Eyes on her phone, tapping, scrolling, but her gaze kept drifting up toward my house. It wasn't parking, it was posturing. See, when someone's never had to fight for their space, they start believing they're entitled to yours. I didn't move. Pulled out my chair, slow, sat down deliberate, coffee cup in hand, Duke at my feet, still as a stone but watchful, porch light flickering soft, just enough glow to catch the challenge in her eyes. She was waiting on a reaction, waiting for the old man to fold. But here's the thing about men like me. We don't fold. We've held longer lines in harder places than this. Nights crouched behind barricades, listening for footsteps in the dark. Days spent in heat so thick it clung to your lungs. Patience isn't a virtue for us, it's survival. 5 minutes. 10. She kept glancing, waiting, hoping I'd blink first. I didn't. 15. 20. When the glare of the setting sun finally dipped beneath the rooftops and the air cooled, she gave up, rolled the windows up sharp, threw the car into gear, peeled away down the street like a child denied dessert. And me? I didn't so much as flinch, just leaned back, took a long sip of coffee, and scratched behind Duke's ear. Because battles like this, you don't win them by raising your voice. You win them by never lowering your standards. I didn't expect to hear from her again so soon, but pride, when bruised, tends to stumble back in, louder than before. It was 3 days later, late morning, sun high, heat clinging to the air like it meant to stay. I was on my knees in the garden, retying the tomatoes, checking the soil. Duke lay stretched in the shade, watching the street like he always did. That's when her voice cut through the quiet. "Hey, excuse me." I straightened up slow, wiped my hands on my jeans, and turned to see her marching across the road. Chin high, sunglasses perched like a shield, the same glossy ponytail swinging behind her like a flag of entitlement. She didn't stop at the sidewalk, walked right up to the edge of my yard, arms crossed tight over her chest. "I just spoke with the HOA, she announced like it was a badge. "They told me you installed some kind of sprinkler system on your driveway." I nodded once, calm, steady. "That's right. They said there's no rule against it." "Also right." She opened her mouth, ready to argue, but caught herself. I watched her jaw work, biting back the words she wanted to spit. Instead, she shifted her weight, narrowed her eyes, and tried a softer angle. "Look," she said, lowering her voice, "I get it. Maybe we started off on the wrong foot. I didn't mean any harm, I thought you were the groundskeeper or something." I didn't smile, didn't scowl, just let the weight of that assumption hang in the air. "You thought I was the help." The words weren't angry. They didn't need to be. Truth, when said plain enough, does the cutting on its own. She shifted again, uncomfortable now, eyes darting toward the street like maybe she could find an exit there. But I wasn't about to give her that easy out. "No, ma'am," I continued. "I'm not the groundskeeper. Name's Walter Harlan, 71 years old. Retired Marine, 3rd Battalion, Gulf War. I moved here 6 months ago for a little peace and quiet." I could see the calculation behind her eyes, the scrambling, but I wasn't finished. "That Mercedes you sneered at? That's my son's. He comes by when he can. Busy man. He's the mayor of the city." Her lips parted. A small, sharp breath escaped before she caught it. One blink, two, the color in her cheeks rising, like the heat had finally started to get to her. I didn't realize." "No," I said. "You didn't." I knelt back down beside the tomato plants, my hands steady as ever, Duke lifting his head just enough to keep watch. "You know," I added, not looking up, "respect isn't about who owns what. It's not about the car you drive or the title you hold. It's about how you treat the people standing right in front of you." For the first time since she walked onto my property, she had nothing to say. The silence between us wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was the sound of a lesson landing where it needed to. She stood there a moment longer, shifting, unsure, then turned and walked back across the street, slower than she'd come. And me? I kept tending my garden, because sometimes the loudest message you can give is the one you deliver without ever raising your voice. The funny thing about pride is how quiet it gets after the fall. For the next few days, I didn't see much of her. No Lexus parked too close, no jogger's ponytail bobbing past my porch like she owned the road. Just still mornings, soft breeze, and the sound of Duke's slow breathing at my feet while I read the paper with my coffee. But change, real change, isn't always loud. It was Thursday afternoon when I noticed. I was out back trimming the mint, debating whether the peppers needed more sun when I heard the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel. Not hurried, not stomping, careful, hesitant. I turned just in time to see her walking up the driveway. Slower this time. No sunglasses, no sharp angles in her stance. She wasn't dressed for a run. No bright leggings, no gym bag slung over her shoulder. Just jeans and a plain gray sweater. Hair down, face bare. She stopped at the edge of the garden, didn't cross the line. "I brought something," she said, lifting a small paper bag in both hands like it might bite her if she moved too fast. I raised an eyebrow but said nothing, just waited. She took a breath, held it longer than she meant to, then let it out. Banana bread, she said. I, I bake when I'm nervous. I nodded once, steady, watching. I'm not good at this, she added, glancing down at the bag, at saying what I should have said from the start. There was a crack in her voice then, small but honest. I judged you, right from the start, and I was wrong. She met my eyes. I'm sorry. No excuses, no backpedaling, just the words. I looked at her hands, knuckles white against the bag, holding on like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Slowly, I set down my clippers and wiped my palms against my jeans. Thank you, I said. Simple, director, because when an apology's real, that's all it needs. She nodded, swallowed hard, and stepped forward just enough to place the bag on the porch rail, then backed away, hands slipping into her pockets, unsure what to do next. I'll let you get back to it, she mumbled, turning toward the street. And that was it. No grand speech, no dramatic handshake, just quiet. But it was the kind of quiet that felt different, the kind of quiet where respect has finally found its place. I picked up the bag, still warm at the bottom, and smiled to myself. Sometimes dignity doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it just waits. The heart of this narrated story is not about conflict. It's about the quiet power of dignity, patience, and the courage to hold the line without losing yourself in anger. In a world where shouting often drowns out listening, this heartwarming story reminds us that respect is not demanded. It's earned, one silent stand at a time. Walter Harlan, a retired Marine and a man shaped by experience, doesn't fight with fists or fury. He fights with stillness, observation, and a deep understanding that true strength often speaks the softest. His refusal to escalate, his choice to respond with calm resolve rather than retaliation, delivers one of the most touching stories we can learn from today. That grace under pressure can be far more powerful than force. So many of us have felt what Walter felt, overlooked, underestimated, sized up before we've had the chance to speak. Whether because of age, appearance, or quietness, the world too often judges worth on the surface. But as this incredible story shows, there's a deeper truth beneath those assumptions. Character is not defined by the car you drive, the clothes you wear, or the titles you hold. It's defined by how you treat others, even when they give you every reason not to. The woman across the street learned this lesson the hard way. But perhaps what makes this story resonate so deeply is not her embarrassment. It's the humility it takes to admit when we are wrong, to offer an apology without conditions, and to face the person we misjudged with honesty. Stories like these narrated stories of quiet justice and simple human decency, are the ones that stay with us. They are not about revenge. They're about restoration, about finding the courage to stand firm without hate, and the wisdom to accept change when it comes. In the end, this tale is one of many unraveled fates, where the unexpected meeting of two lives leads not to destruction, but to understanding, and maybe, just maybe, a little more respect in the world.